Ethan Miller had always lived under the towering shadow of the Miller name in Columbus, Ohio. With a father who owned a network of successful real estate firms and a mother who ruled over society galas with an iron smile, Ethan was raised to become the perfect heir. But instead, he chose Jasmine Rivera. Jasmine was everything his family was not. She came from a small working-class community in Dayton. Her hands were familiar with service, not silver spoons. She worked with children, taught them how to dream, and lived with a heart full of compassion. Ethan had fallen for her during a volunteer trip to the city shelter. Her laugh, her warmth, her strength. He hadn't stood a chance. Their wedding had been small, quiet. A deliberate decision by Ethan to avoid the frostbitten politeness of his parents. Douglas and Linda Miller had attended, yes, but they barely smiled in the photos. Ethan had hoped time would soften them. It did not. One rainy afternoon, as Jasmine was returning from the grocery store, Ethan received a message in the family group chat. Get your passports ready. Europe trip confirmed. Leaving mid-June. Amsterdam first stop. His fingers hovered over the screen. There was no mention of Jasmine. No, Jasmine too. No, +1. Just the same old cold Miller efficiency. He scrolled up, rereading each word. No mistake. When Jasmine walked into the kitchen, her hair damp from the mist, she smiled and dropped the paper bag on the counter. Something wrong? She asked. Ethan hesitated. My parents are planning a Europe trip. Amsterdam. They didn't include you. She blinked. Did they forget, or? He didn't answer. The silence filled the kitchen. That night, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The rain tapped softly against the window. Something felt off. It wasn't just exclusion. It was intentional. The next morning, he called his sister, Claire. She was the only one in the family who had shown even a sliver of warmth toward Jasmine. They didn't forget, she whispered on the phone. Mom said they wanted to be just family. She is family, Ethan replied, voice cold. Claire paused. They don't see her that way, Ethan. And there's more. You should check your email. The call ended. Ethan opened his inbox. There it was, an itinerary, hotel bookings, dinner reservations in Amsterdam, and a separate note titled, Sensitive Logistics. He clicked it. The document was locked. Password protected. And the sender? His father's executive assistant. Ethan's stomach turned. Why would there be a confidential file attached to a family vacation? He couldn't shake the feeling. Something deeper was at play. Something Jasmine didn't know. Yet. And he intended to find out. Ethan stared at the password prompt on his screen. His fingers hovered above the keyboard, tension rising with each failed attempt. What would his father use? He tried birthdays. He tried Jasmine's name. He even tried their old address. None worked. He sat back in his chair, frustrated. Then he remembered something. Hannah, his father's assistant, once told him that Douglas used the last 4 digits of the first commercial lease he ever signed as a universal password. It was a long shot, but worth a try. Ethan typed it in. The file opened. Inside was a spreadsheet. Flight numbers, hotel contacts, chauffeur services, and one strange entry at the bottom. Private security escort from Schiphol. Special screening prep. Passenger 4. Passenger 4? He checked the manifest. Passenger 1, Ethan. Passenger 2, Linda Miller. Passenger 3, Douglas Miller. Passenger 4, left blank. He felt his hands go cold. Why would there be a prepared security escort for someone not even on the trip? He printed the page. Then, grabbing his coat, he left the house without a word to Jasmine. Claire met him at her door. Her face was pale. Why didn't you tell me something was off earlier? He demanded. She pulled him inside, closed the door quickly. Because I didn't want to believe it. Ethan laid the document on her kitchen table. Claire read it. Her hands shook. I heard Mom talking to Dad. They said something about Jasmine being a liability. That they'd take care of it during the trip. I didn't know what that meant. Ethan clenched his fists. Take care of it, he repeated. Claire nodded, frightened. They've hired someone. I don't know who. But Mom called it a clean way out. Ethan felt his knees go weak. This wasn't just about keeping Jasmine away. It was about erasing her. Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat in his car outside his parents' estate, hidden in the shadows of a neighbor's hedgerow. The glow from their front porch illuminated the glossy black car parked at the curb, a luxury sedan he didn't recognize. He waited. At 10:37 p.m., a man in a navy suit exited the house. Tall, fit, clean-shaven. Not family. Not a friend. He opened the car door and drove away silently. Ethan made a note of the number plate. The next morning, he paid a visit to an old university friend, Marcus, who now worked in private security. "You still good at tracking down names from plates?" Ethan asked, handing him a coffee and a scribbled note. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Still illegal. Still fun. Give me a few hours." By noon, the answer came. The car belonged to Haven Protection Services, a firm that specialized in executive security and discreet containment. Ethan's mouth went dry. The file mentioned screening and escort. This wasn't some exaggerated precaution. His parents had hired someone for Jasmine. He returned home and found Jasmine curled up on the sofa, reading a book. She looked up and smiled. "Where have you been?" Ethan hesitated. He couldn't tell her yet. Not until he knew more. "Just errands," he replied, forcing a smile. Later that evening, he checked the guest Wi-Fi activity from the router's admin panel. A trick Marcus had shown him. His eyes widened. A new device had connected to their home network 3 days ago. Someone had been inside their house, or close enough to tap the signal. He rushed outside, walked the perimeter, and there, nestled behind the shed, hidden beneath damp leaves, he found it. A tiny black object, no bigger than a matchbox. A microphone. Ethan held it in his palm, rage and fear swirling in his chest. His parents weren't just plotting something. They were listening. Ethan stood on the porch of his parents' home. His fingers curled into fists at his sides. He hadn't told Jasmine where he was going. Not yet. Linda opened the door. Her expression was calm, cold, unreadable.
"Ethan.
This is unexpected. We need to talk." She led him to the sitting room, where Douglas was already waiting, whiskey in hand, as if he knew this visit was inevitable. Ethan didn't sit. "I found the file. I know about the escort, the screening, the hired security." Douglas didn't flinch. "You're overreacting."
To what?"
"Your plan to remove my wife from your lives." Linda's voice was even. "You've made your choice. But you can't expect us to embrace someone who drags this family into scandal and scrutiny." Ethan's voice rose. "She's done nothing but love me." "She's not one of us," Douglas replied. "And she never will be." "You're right," Ethan said, chest heaving. "She's better." He turned on his heel and walked out. He had heard enough. That night, Ethan finally told Jasmine everything. She sat in silence as he revealed the details. The file, the escort, the bug. "I didn't want to believe it," he admitted. "But they've gone too far." Her face was pale, but her voice steady. "What do we do now?" "We fight back." Ethan called Marcus again. "Can you find out who they hired?" "The security detail."
"Names."
"Anything." 2 days later, Marcus had a name. Vincent Hale. Ex-military. Now a private consultant. Known for jobs that danced just along the edge of legality. "He doesn't just keep people out," Marcus warned. "He makes people disappear." Jasmine didn't flinch. "Then we make sure we're not easy to find." Ethan looked at her. "You mean run?" "No," she replied. "We expose them first." Ethan and Jasmine boarded a separate flight to the Netherlands, using different names, traveling light. The Miller itinerary had them landing in Amsterdam 2 days later. They checked into a modest hotel far from the luxury suites the Millers had reserved. From there, they watched. Jasmine took photos. Ethan kept notes. When the Millers arrived at Schiphol, Vincent Hale was there, just as expected. They followed from a distance, careful, quiet. By the second day, they had what they needed. Video of Vincent taking instructions from Linda in a cafe, gesturing with photographs, one of which was clearly Jasmine's. "I think it's time," Ethan said. Jasmine nodded. "Let's end this." Using Claire as a willing accomplice, Ethan arranged a private family dinner, supposedly to make peace. Linda agreed, reluctantly. The restaurant was small, elegant, and, unbeknownst to them, wired. Cameras installed discreetly. Audio recording live. Jasmine stayed hidden but nearby, in case anything turned. Over appetizers, Ethan turned the conversation. You really thought you'd get away with it? Linda stiffened. I don't know what you mean. We have it all. The photos. The contract. The conversations. Douglas leaned forward. You wouldn't dare ruin your own name. I'm not, Ethan said. You already did that. He stood, placed a small drive on the table. This is going to the police. And the press. Unless you leave Jasmine alone. Forever. The next morning, headlines spread. Local tabloids ran it first. Real estate tycoons under fire for alleged plot against daughter-in-law. Douglas and Linda issued a public statement denying everything. But it was too late. Clients began canceling contracts. Sponsors pulled out from gala events. Ethan and Jasmine stayed silent. Their lawyer handled everything. Claire backed them up. Vincent Hale vanished. No one knew where he went. Ethan suspected the Millers paid him to disappear. They never heard from him again. Months passed. Ethan never saw his parents again. He sent a letter, short and final. You chose power over people. I chose love. He and Jasmine bought a small home on the outskirts of Columbus. Quiet, green, peaceful. Claire visited often.
Sometimes they talked about the past.
Sometimes they didn't. But they were safe. And free. One spring morning, Jasmine stood on the porch, watching the wind sway the tall grass. Ethan joined her, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. Do you regret any of it? He asked.
She shook her head. No.
Because we're here. He nodded.
Together.
The pain hadn't vanished. The betrayal still lingered. But it no longer owned them. They had taken their story back. And that was enough.